The last time around, the polls predicted a comfortable win for Hillary Clinton. We all know how that ended. And yet, the Democrats believe that this time will be different. Are you one of them, and why?
Yes, and I think that actually, the story about the polls being wrong in 2016 is not actually accurate. The national polls were very accurate. We had kind of a black swan event in the battleground states, and Trump ended up winning. There were some flaws in the state polls. I also think all of this can be seen as really two different groups of people in the United States living within two completely different worldviews, which is why it's so often hard to talk across the divide we have now. And I talk about this in my book, Patriots of Two Nations. And it's as if one nation lives within the Enlightenment tradition of reason on which the country was founded, but we've missed the fact there's always been a counter-Enlightenment resistance, which values faith and tradition and mythology and symbolism more. So what my Republican friends just said is actually factually untrue, but to Trump supporters, it feels like a higher truth to talk about law and order and a thriving economy. Neither of those things is true. Violent crime has been declining in the United States steadily since the 90s, including in so-called Democrat-run cities. The Obama recovery was stronger, the growth was stronger in every way under Obama, and Trump has slowed it down while exploding the debt. And this so-called anarchy in the cities is almost entirely peaceful protests against racial injustice. But we could argue the facts and get nowhere. A lot of that stuff just feels symbolically true to Trump supporters, I believe. And Democrats actually go wrong when they miss that and talk only about facts and logic like I just did. We have to recognize what's the symbolic appeal of a figure like President Trump. I actually agree with the critique of liberals as coming across as smug and arrogant, and I want to be clear. When I talk about people who support Trump valuing faith and tradition and mythology and symbolism, I'm not dismissing that. I think Democrats have missed the importance of that and have been overly rational and have tended to come across as if they're lecturing and as if they're arrogant. It's also created the opening for a con man and demagogue like President Trump to come in and pretend to be somebody who satisfies their longing for this deeper meaning and this more sense of love of country and all that he's good at projecting, but it's completely phony in his case, and that's the issue here. Also, on the issue of police violence, I've worked for years with police departments, including advocating on behalf of an excellent police department when they were accused of unjust officer-involved shootings. I've also worked in close partnership with the Obama Justice Department on the same issues. The Obama Justice Department was a model of addressing not just racial bias issues in policing in America, but improved, smarter approaches to violence that were succeeding. So-called Democrat-run cities like San Jose developed that model, and San Jose, for example, went from being one of the most dangerous large cities in America to one of the safest, following these enlightened practices that the Obama administration was pursuing. Gun violence is another issue I'm very familiar with, and I think also it's one that Democrats have been weak on in many cases through apparently showing they don't understand gun owners and gun culture. It's a complex issue that I think needs to be discussed at a more adult level. Also, the thing about Obama talking about clinging to guns and religion, that was actually an example, although it was unfortunate to use the word clinging, of him telling liberals, do not dismiss the culture of working class white people with comments like clinging to guns and religion. You need to understand how the culture has deep meaning to them. And when you talk about gun nuts or religious wackos, you are being disrespectful and you're only harming Democrats. So I think that's really more the way to look at all of these issues.